Self-editing overview, plus a printable checklist. First draft done? Pat yourself on the back, have a cookie, and then get back to it. While everything is still fresh in your mind, I recommend doing what I call a first pass revision. As you read through the manuscript for the first time, you'll want to keep your eye out for the big picture, mid-pick, and small details. Of course, later you'll be going through the thing with a fine-tooth comb, but for your first self-edit, which is like an overview, the following list is what you'll be looking at. So first we're going to look at some of the big picture elements. Character congruence. Do your main characters act, speak, and think in line with the persona you created for them in the beginning, and then as they experience their character arc change? For instance, you may have a main character who lacks self-confidence at the beginning of the story. It could make sense for that person to behave in ways that reflect that. Maybe they apologize for every little thing. They wouldn't be the prime candidate to take a leadership position at their firm, but if they're offered such a role and if they don't take the job, they'll lose their home, the character arc would reflect that, them stepping up to the plate and doing whatever it takes, even scaling a mountain. But they wouldn't so much as hop over a hill in the beginning. So make sure each of your characters remains true to themselves and their story. Conflict. Every story must have conflict, not necessarily violence or argument, though depending on your genre, likely there are outside forces involved. Be sure there's a distinct struggle between characters as well as an internal struggle with their wants, needs, desires, etc. Conflict creates tension. It gets the reader to turn the page. If you have chapter after chapter of not much going on, toss in some conflict. That's, again, true to the story. It can't come out of the blue, but if in our previous example, our main character is up for the job promotion and so is her high school crush, then we have conflict. Stakes. The stakes are what's at risk. What forces are working against the main character? Are your stakes woven in throughout the manuscript? Is the character reminded of them, meaning the reader is desperate to find out if the main character is going to lose their home, or their elderly grandmother also lives and is adored by our main character? Side note. Also, she bakes amazing cookies, so we don't want her to see her shipped off to a nursing home. Not only that, but the main character refuses to lose the job offer to her ex-crush because he stood her up at prom, and no way will she let him get the best of her twice. So you kind of get the picture. Next, we move on to mid-picture elements. Point of view. Is the point of view consistent throughout the manuscript? Avoid head-hopping, telling the story from one person's point of view and then another's in the same scene. Show, don't tell. Make sure the reader feels, sees, smells, and is immersed in the experience. A classic way of understanding this I've seen somewhere is instead of a character wanting something, you must now describe the thing so that the reader wants it too. Don't name emotions, show them. Info dumping. This is what it sounds like when a whole bunch of information is told to the reader. Oftentimes this consists of backstory and can be identified by telling instead of showing, as well as nothing really happening in the scene. Pacing. As you're reading, are there any places where you get bored? Don't really feel like turning the page? If so, it's likely your reader will too. This is the time to see if you can heighten tension. Scenes. Does each scene serve a purpose to the bigger picture plot? Does each scene propel the story forward? Loose ends. Are all those loose ends tied up? Make sure if you mention a character or event that it's resolved by the end of the story. Sometimes there are exceptions to this in a series, but in that case, be sure that whatever you leave open-ended is intentional. Overused words. Well, did you know that there are just some words that it seems like you shouldn't overuse? Have you heard of them? I mean, I think this is a fairly complete list, but I wonder if there are more. I realize there might be, but I feel like I can come up with some more, but I'm not sure. See what I did there? Examples of overused words. See, hear, think, touch, wonder, realize, watch, look, seem, feel, can, decide, sound, know, noticed, remember, well, just, to be variations, am, are, is, was, where, have, had. Oftentimes we also have our personal overused words. I found myself writing the word so or a lot sometimes, especially in dialogue. Intensifiers. You want to avoid the overuse of the following as well. They're usually referred to as intensifiers. Try to use an active word like a verb instead. Very, really, suddenly, amazing, awesome, started, start, in order, to, thing, replace with another word, be specific. There is, there are. Miscellaneous. Make sure character names are spelled consistently correctly. Eliminate double spaces between words or after punctuation. The grammar check software will often spot these, but sometimes they slip through. Open up the Find tool, type in 2 spaces, and it should come up with them. Be sure you don't accidentally have an apostrophe after the letter where it doesn't belong. For example, don't with an apostrophe after the T. You can also use Find for this in your computer software. Use an active voice versus a passive one when possible. For example, she was offered the promotion at her company, but didn't think she was qualified. The job offer at her company would mean she could save the house, but her confidence wavered at the thought of facing her boss in the boardroom every Wednesday. See the differences? These are a relatively quick way to clean up your manuscript so you don't get too bogged down or overwhelmed on the next few editorial passes or have your editor ding you for little things that you can correct on your own. Download the PDF checklist for each book you revise.